Okay, welcome students. So this is the revisional video in which we are going to go through the basics of file handling because that's what you have for the upcoming exam. So we're going to go right from the beginning till the end for the file handling. So file handling basically students we use to deal with files, and basically we're going to deal with the text files and the binary files. We use it for the text file and the binary files, but as far as this particular video is concerned, it is based on the text file. And there are many other uses also of file handling, so we should know how to use a file. So programmatically we are going to open a file, write onto the file, and perform all the operations. Also I've shown you like how you can use the file to store the data in form of a records, because normally we use the DBMS software, and which is the most appropriate software to store the data. But yes, you can do it using the file handling also, but then there are certain limitations. In fact, a lot of limitations you get into file handling as compared to the DBMS software. But other than that, if you have a file which has a lot of data, you need to extract data from that particular, some of your data, from filter the data from that huge data, then you should be knowing file handling and how to perform the operations onto the file handling. So all that said and done, so let's begin. So how to deal with files? So we will be using certain functions to open the file, a text file, and perform some operations. So let's begin. First, let me just check whether we have any text file or not. So we can take any text file like story, and you can see this is a text file, story.txt, and there is some text onto this file. So how we are going to open a file is we are going to make use of the open function, which is used to open a file. Okay, so the name of the function is open, and then we need a file handler, which is a kind of a pointer, and in normal case it will be just a variable. So the file pointer will open the file. Basically the open function will open the file, and the file pointer will point to that particular file, and it will point to the first byte of the file. So when I say fen, that's the name of my pointer. The file handler, you can give any name, but you have to use proper name conventions. So fen is equal to open, and then I give the name of the file, that is story.txt, and let's open this in R mode. Now there are two arguments that we are passing to this particular function. So please understand, those who have not yet understood the entire chapter, so we are going from the basics. So open function is used to open a file, but there are various modes that we can open a file. These modes it will matter a lot. For example, this is the name of the file, and that's the first argument that we need to pass to this function, that is the name of the file that we need to open. Now that's the name of the file, story.txt. And then there is a next argument, there is a comma, and next argument that will specify the mode. Now mode, I said over here, the letter R. The letter R basically denotes read. So basically I'm opening this file in read mode. Please understand this. So I'm opening this file into read mode, which means that I can only do reading from this particular file. I cannot do any kind of writing onto the file. I cannot dump any data into the file. I can only read the data from the file. So this is what it means. So that's the first thing. And then we can straight away extract the data. We can read the data from the file. So how we are going to read the data is there are three functions to read the data from the file, and these are basically methods because they are associated with the file pointer, that in this case this is fen. Okay, now how to do that? There are three functions. First is I say, str is equal to fin dot read. So that's the first method. Okay, that's the first method. So I will type over here method one. So first method to read the data from the file. So what is this function? This particular method, since it is associated with this particular object, that is the file pointer, so this is a method. So a method will, this particular method is basically going to read the data from the file. It is going to read the entire data from the file, and it is going to return, this function is going to return, the method is going to return a string. So the entire file is going to be in form of a string, fine. And that's the reason the name of this particular variable I've just given as str, so which denotes that this is a variable which is going to hold string. So that's the read method, which is going to read the data from the file and going to return the string. Now this is going to return the entire file, and straight away then I can simply use the print function and pass that particular variable, that is the str. And obviously when we use the print function, it is going to print that particular data of that variable, isn't it? So if I run this particular program and I save this with, that is a region dot py, and now you can see the data, it is got displayed over here as what it was in that particular file. It is exactly the same data, that is from story.txt. So that's the same data in front of you. So read function, what did a read function did for us is that it has read the entire data, it has read the entire data from the file, and it has returned that entire data in form of a string. So basically understand, the read function returns string value. The read method returns the string value, and then straight away we have used the print function for printing the data. If I want, I can just, if I pass something like 10 out here, so what is going to happen in this case is it is only going to read the first 10 bytes, or I can also say the first 10 characters, right? So one character represents one byte, so I can say that first 10 characters we are going to read from the file, and that is going to, that characters are going to be, uh, it is going to get returned in form of a string. So if I run this particular function, and you can see that today, and there is a space, even space is a character. So 1 2 3 4 5, you can see out here, right? 1 2 3 4 5, and this is 6, that is a blank space. 6 7 8, and there is a blank space. 9, and this is 10. So you can see it has read first 10 characters from the file. But what if I use the same statement again, and what is going to happen over here? Okay, now please understand over here that this file pointer matters a lot. Okay, with this particular statement, it will read the first 10 characters from the byte, and since it has read the first 10 characters from the byte, the file pointer is pointing to the 11th character. The file pointer will be pointing to the 11th character, and then if I use this statement again, so from the 11th character it is going to read the next, you know including that 11th character, 10 characters or 10 bytes it is going to read. So if I use again this, and okay, and I'll also give a print statement, so we will have two different outputs, isn't it? So this is str, and now if I run this particular code, and you can see the output that today is, and the, and the next thing is over here, today is the. What's the first line over here? Today is the anniversary, right? And you can see today is until t, that's the first 10 characters it has printed. Why? Because I've used that print statement out here. That's the first print statement and the first output that we got. And then again we are reading the next 10 characters. So what it has done is it has read from the h, and one from here it has collected the 10 characters or the 10 bytes. It has read till r. So if you just count it, it is going to be the 10 characters. And so we have this particular output. Since we have not used the end, we have not passed the end, the keyword argument, it has come to the next line, isn't it? So print statement will straight away come to the next line by default. So this is how it works basically. And if I do not pass, is what is going to happen if I do not pass anything. Can you guess what kind of output we are going to get? Now if I run this particular function, I mean this particular program, so the first output that I got is the entire file, isn't it? The entire file was the first output, and then there is no output, absolutely. In fact, there is one blank line, there is a line feed out here. So why we had this kind of output is because we are reading the entire file. Since I'm not passing any argument out here, we are reading the entire file. And since it has read the complete file, the file pointer is basically pointing to the end of file. And it is also called as EOF, that is end of file. So understand, that's EOF. Okay, so EOF, I'll type it over here, that is EOF. So basically the file pointer is pointing to the end of file, that is EOF, and there is no data to read. And that's the reason this particular pointer, when it's trying to read some data, there is no data, so it is blank. And so that this is, we have this line feed out here. So this is how, and this is why we got this particular output. So that was the first function, and then the next function that we have is the read line. The read line function basically will only read one particular line, so this will basically read only the first line. So if I run this, so you can see it has read the first complete line, and if you see the original file, and it is still publication, isn't it? And that's the same output that we got over here, that is over here, that is still publication, isn't it? And then we are printing the line, and that's the reason we have got this output. And then again I'm using that readline function. So what happens over here is, since the file pointer has read the first line, now the file pointer will point to the next line, since it has read the one complete line. Okay, and that's the reason it is pointing to the next line. And now if I use the same function again in the same code, in the same program, so it is going to read the next line. Understand this. So this is why we have this output. So read line basically used to read what complete line. Okay, it reads till slash n. Understand it, it reads till slash n, that is the end of the line. Fine. And if I use something like a characters like 10, so this is going to work same as the read function. It is going to read the first 10 characters, and then the next of the characters are going to get followed. Please understand this. But then again, if I use that read line, it is going to read till slash n. So you can say today is T, that is today is the anniversary of the publication. So it has read for the next statement. I'm not passing anything, but it has gone till the next, it is gone till the slash n. Fine. So this is how this works, but normally we do not use this with a read line. Okay, in certain cases we might require to use this, but normally if I really have to read only the first 10 characters, I'm going to use the read function, the read method, and not the read line method. So that's the output for this particular code. That's the first line, and then there is one line feed because I'm using the print function, and then the second line. So that is the readline function, and then the next function that we have is read lines. Now what is this function? This function, that is a S over here, please understand this. So the read method and the read line methods, both these methods, okay, read and read lines, both these methods are going to return data in form of a string. Okay, so both the functions, both the methods returns data in form of a string. But read lines, what this does is, this is also going to read the complete file, and this is going to read the complete file in a list. So list will have the elements, and the elements is going to be the lines of the file. The elements are going to be the lines of the file, and this is going to return a list. This particular method read lines is going to return a list. So this will read the entire file and it is going to return a list. So let me just give this name as L, just to use a proper naming convention. So once I read this particular code, once I run this particular code, it is going to give me an error because I haven't given the str changed over here, the L. So you can see this is the output of this particular program, and you can see there is a list. The list starts from here and the element is the first line. You can see today is the anniversary of the publication, and it has also shown you that /n character. Okay, that is a line feed, and that's one complete item or one complete element of the list. And then you can see that there is a comma which separates the elements of the list, and then there is a next item that is also what, that is the second line of the file. And then again there is a comma, third line, fourth line, and so on. So this is a list which contains the elements. The elements are in form of the lines of the file. So now since I have this a list, and if I really have to calculate that how many lines are there in the file, how many lines does the file contain, how I can do this. Now this is a list, isn't it? So what I can do to calculate how many lines are there, I can simply use the len function, right? Simply use the len function. That's it. There were two print statements, I don't require this. Okay, so len is going to calculate the length of the list. And how does it calculate the length of the list? Depending on the elements of the list, and over here the elements are the lines of the lines of the file. So once I run this, and it is going to give me a number, and the number is 18. So total we have 18 lines in this particular file. Fine. So total number of lines in this file are 18. So then if I really have to calculate how many characters are there in the file, so I can simply use a read function, and okay, I'm just going to keep this as L, but this is going to be a list, and then len of L. So this L is going to be a string value, a string variable. It is going to be a string variable because it is going to hold a string value. And then simply I can use the len of L, so it is going to return what, the number of characters. And if I run this particular, and you can see there are 848 characters in this particular file, including the space, blank space, slash, and everything. Okay, so 848 characters are there in this particular file. So this is about the reading the data from the file. And one more I can show it. Okay, if I just go back, go control plus Z. Okay, control plus Z, that is read lines. And if I have to only display the last line of the file, how I'm going to do that? So I can simply use since I have this list, so I can do a lot of operations, I can perform a lot of operations, and I can use that negative index, that is -1. And this is what it is going to do, is it is going to give the last line of the file, isn't it? So let's go to this, and you can see that I have listed some of them here too, and that's the output that we got. So I have used that negative index -1, so it is going to display the last line of the file. So simple, isn't it? So these are some of the operations that we have performed using the read functions. Now let's switch to the write mode. So write mode, which means that we can write data onto the file, right? We can write the data onto the file. So I have to switch from R to W. So this is going to it is going to allow us to write some data onto the file, that is story.txt. And understand, when we open the file in W mode, if this file does not exist, if this story.txt does not exist, it is going to create a file with the name story.txt. If the file exists, if this file exists, then this W mode is going to truncate the file, which means that the existing data will be lost and it will be a blank file, and the new data that you're going to write onto it, it will be that new data is going to get written onto the file. So if there is any previous data, it is going to get deleted. Okay, it is going to get truncated. Please understand this. And then I can simply use, now since this is story.txt, so I will not really mess up with this particular file. Let me, you can use this for the future. So I will use some name like revision.txt. So this particular file does not exist, but it is going to create this file since I'm opening this file in W mode. If this would have been the R mode and the file does not exist, in that case it is going to throw an exception, which will be in form of an error, in fact. So it is going to be an error and it is going to tell you that the file does not exist. Understand it? So we are going to create this file and open the file in W mode. W mode is automatically going to create this file for us. And then if I say str, this is the first line, and then I can simply use the function that is fin dot and I say write an str, or you can simply pass that string straight away as the argument. Even that you can do it. And I just remove this and I say fin dot close. Closing is important when you are basically doing some writing as well as reading. Always have a habit of closing the file. So fin dot close is going to close that file. So now if I run this particular code and we have no output, why we don't have any output? Because there is no print function. We're not printing anything onto the console. So how we're going to check the output for this particular program is by going to the folder and checking for the revision.txt. So let's go to, that is separate text files. Okay, then I will go to revision.txt and you can see that revision.txt, that's the text file. If I just open this and you can see that the data has, we have written the data onto the file, right? And now if I just over here, if I run this code again and this time I say okay, let me have this second line, and now if I run this particular code again and check, and you can see this is the second line. So where is the first line? The first line is lost. Why it lost? Because as I said that W mode, if the file exists, W mode is going to open the file in the write mode, but the previous data will be lost. But if I really want that the previous data should get retained, so I will just use the the a mode, which is the append mode. So this particular mode is going to work same as the W mode, but the previous data, the difference is that the previous data will get retained. Now if I really use this as my second line, or this is the third line, now if I run this particular code and go and check into revision, and you can see this is the second line, and just next to that we have this is the third line. So we don't want that, right? We don't want that in the same line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this in W mode so that the previous data, and I will say this is the first line. So and I'm going to, at the end I need to give a slash n, so that next time when we read the line, do some writing of the line onto the file, so it will be in the next line. First I will run this into W mode, check this, and you can see the previous data has lost, and this is the first line, isn't it? So let me close this, and now if I just copy this and paste this, and I say over here second line and write, and I run this, and now if I check the file you can see it's in the second line. Spelling was wrong, but no issues. Okay, so this is the second line and so on. So now if you do any kind of writing, and this was in fact in W mode, so I will write this as A mode, and now just remove everything. Now even if I run this again and give this as third line, so it won't create any problem because it is in A mode. A mode is basically going to retain the previous data, so this data will be present and the next data will be written on the third line, that is this particular line. So if I run this particular code, check this, and you can see this is the third line, right? So A mode is going to retain your previous data. Please understand this. Write function, something more about the write function is the method. It takes the argument in form of a string. right? It takes the argument in form of a string. That's the reason I passed a string. There is one more function, that is read line. Read line, and if I really try to run this, okay, it is going to give me an error, because read line basically takes a list, and the list will have, data basically. Okay, so I can just make this as a list, and let me just have that one list, and I'm just passing that one element. There's only one element, so you can have comma, and then the next element also can be the next line, and then the entire list we pass to this particular method, that is write line, and it is going to dump everything that is there in the into the list onto the file. Okay, so this is the third line. So let me just change this and make this as the fourth line. Okay, and now if I just run this particular code, still there is some error. Read lines, it is read lines. And now if I run this particular code, and let me just check the output, and you can see the next data, this is the fourth line we have successfully written onto the file. So there are two functions for writing the data onto the file. First is the write, which takes the argument in form of a string, and second is write. First was the write function, which takes the argument in form of a string, and the second is write lines. Write and write lines. Write will take the argument in form of a string, and write lines will take the argument in form of a list, and the list should contain the elements, that is the data. Okay, so this is how we can do it. So write and write lines, and for reading the data, there are three methods, understand, that is read, then read line, and read lines. And then we have, for writing, there are two functions, two methods, write and write lines. You can just work along with this R mode. If I say R plus is basically I can read the data as well as I can write onto the data. So plus basically gives that power to R to write the data onto the file. And if I say W plus, so this gives the extra power to write the data onto the file as well as to read the data onto the file. So this is all about the revision tour, children. These are really some basics that you need to follow, and we have really worked so hard on this particular chapter, because we have also you know worked on the project, and we have done a lot of coding. We have implemented the entire crude operations, that is how to create records, reading the records, updating the records, deleting the records. All these operations we have performed. So make sure, children, please study properly for your upcoming exams, and practice. Okay, this requires a lot of practice, and just these three methods, please understand it very clearly. That is the read line, and read lines. Work on to it. And the two methods for writing the data, that is write and write lines. So this is about the revision tour, and then I'm going to open the window on the WhatsApp. So if you have any doubts, anything, obviously we cannot discuss about the projects and all, or some huge uh, some about some huge code, there is some logical errors, but this particular window will be open for you for the upcoming exams. So obviously the exam is going to be in the form of MCQ, but yes, you have to predict the outputs. So when you have to predict the outputs, so obviously you have to do a lot of you know trace the program onto the paper. So be prepared for that. Okay, so predict the outputs will be there. Fine, children, so anything is there, any doubts, so please ask me in the WhatsApp window. Okay, bye for now.